can be considered at an adjourned session. And if I understand it correctly, that adjourned session is to take place a week from this coming Thursday. Is that correct, Mr. O'Leary?
That's correct. Thursday, October 11th.
So when we come up to articles which involve transfer from free cash, be prepared for a motion to postpone consideration until the end of the warrant, or near the end of the warrant, whatever it is. And that will require a two-thirds vote. That will require a two-thirds vote. Mr. O'Leary.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the following persons who are North Reading High School students of the Civics and United States Government courses be admitted to the meeting. Chris Peters, Sharice Landers, Mark Pearson, Karen Capua, Laurie Brown, Jen Doherty, Ashley Crooker, Joseph, he wrote his name instead of printing it. Obviously he didn't do well in penmanship, so you'll excuse me if the last name I don't know. Robert McGlappin, Gail McKinney, Jessica Beveridge, Emily Batchelder, Meg Sardella, Elaine O'Toole, and Jackie McQuestion will be admitted to the meeting.
Okay, you've heard the motion to admit students of North Reading High School to the meeting. And there is a total of, I'd say, 14,
two more, Mr. Moderator.
14 of them.
Marlene Marino and Megan Hernandez.
You've heard the motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Yes.
I'm
Point of order.
sorry. Mr. O'Leary.
Excuse me, Mr. Hancock.
Some of the students that you mentioned are registered voters. Can you accommodate their votes other than having them sit in the visitor section?
Comment from the floor is that some of the people we are admitting here are already registered voters. So obviously they would have a yellow badge and couldn't be counted by our teller. So I will ask Ms. Benjamin to count those people in the front rows where they're going to be seated who have a yellow badge. Thank you very much, sir. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion to admit these students of North Reading High School to the meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Now, the 4 front rows on the section to my right, your left, are reserved for visitors. And those visitors who serve the town either as in an administrative or other capacity can be either seated with their boards in the front here or in the 2 front rows in the center section. All others should be seated in the 4 rows in the section to my right. So there should be no people who don't have a yellow badge in the general audience. Mr. O'Leary.
Mr. Moderator, I move to admit the following persons to the meeting. Michael Sorrigan, Town Engineer. Richard Simmons, Assessor. Donald Statz, North Reading Fire Department. And Darren Klein, Town Council.
You've heard the motion to admit 4 more people to the meeting. Is there any discussion on that? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Unanimous. Is there a motion to dispense with the reading of the warrant? Mr. O'Leary.
I move to dispense with the reading of the warrant and to refer to the articles by number, and further to dispense with the reading of the return of services by the constable.
You've heard the motion to dispense with the reading of the warrant and to refer to the articles by number, and further to dispense with the reading of the return of service by the constable. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed? Unanimous. One more. We have one more, Mr. O'Leary. Until we've dealt with this. Mr. O'Leary.
Wish I could read this number too. This name. I move that the following person be admitted. Looks like Danny Catano, 4 Susan Drive.
Is there any discussion on the motion to admit Danny Catalano? All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed? Unanimous. Mr. O'Leary.
Before we get into the articles themselves, there's a couple of things I'd like to point out. First and foremost, in case you haven't noticed, we have a clean-shaven moderator up here. I took the liberty of asking Mr. Kubieski when was the last time he had this much of himself exposed, and it was determined as 1980. So it's nice to see all of you there, Mr.
Thank you,
Kubieski.
Mr. O'Leary, for all the attention, but the moderator is not supposed to be the focus of all the attention.
No, but you tend to thrust yourself in the middle of things. As the moderator pointed out, there's a number of articles that we will be unable to address this evening because it was the intention of the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee and School Committee, proponents of many of these articles, to fund some of the requests from free cash. The Department of Revenue has not given us a final certified number from free cash and has also issued an edict that if we were to act on it and appropriate from free cash without prior authorization from them as far as the number or certification for the number, it wouldn't count. We would have to be back here doing it again anyway. So there are a number of articles that we're going to be recommending that we postpone further consideration until after the final article, which is Article 24. And once we get to Article 24 this evening, the board will be making a motion to adjourn this session until a week from Thursday. That will give the town administration, the finance director, town administrator, and the appropriate boards and committees and commission to get the certified number squared away with the Department of Revenue, and then also in relation to the request to determine whether or not we have enough funds available to fund those requests. Unfortunately, we're caught between a rock and a hard place, circumstances beyond our control. Generally, we have this number nailed down by now. My guess is a part of the reason is that the state is without a budget at this point and beyond our control. So it's unfortunate. I'd hoped that we'd be through this in one night, but circumstances beyond our control. With that, Mr. Moderator, under Article 1, I move to hear and act upon the reports of town officers and committees as may be presented by at this meeting.
To move and hear and act upon the reports of the town officers and committees as may be presented at this meeting. Just for reference, how many committees have an oral report that they wish to give to the committee to the meeting tonight? I don't see anybody waiting. Mr. Smith.
Mr. Moderator, can we have a point of clarification? We just heard Mr. O'Leary indicate that the Department of Revenue hasn't certified the amounts of money that's available for free cash. My question is, what has currently already been certified for free cash, and is it in fact the only amount of money that they haven't certified, the $353,800 that was turned back into the town's general account? Is that the only money that hasn't been certified?
Mr. O'Leary, would you care to answer Mr. Smith's question?
I will defer to the Finance Director, Mr. Dow.
Mr. Dow.
Effectively on June 30th, free cash goes to zero and is recalculated again as of July 1st each year. And the Department of Revenue has not certified the new figure for July 1st, 2001.
Does that mean that the free cash right now is zero?
That's correct.
Right.
Thank you,
Mr. That's precisely my indication to the audience tonight. If that means that we have zero money in free cash, and the only amount of free cash that's going to be certified by the Department of Revenue is $353,000. That's a very small amount of money for this administration to start tapping into and taking money out of our free cash. So you want to remember, when you're voting on these free cash issues, when these items come up, we're going to be back to zero again if in fact the Department of Revenue certifies this money within the next 3 weeks. That's all the money we have. We have no money in free cash, and that's why they're waiting for this $353,000 to come back. So remember that.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. All this was really, I allowed it to go on, but it was not germane to the question before us. The question before us is whether you wish to hear and act upon the reports of town officers and committees as may be presented at this meeting. I'm sorry. Is this better? I try to squint at my text and I can't see it when the microphone is in front of me. The question before the meeting is whether we wish to hear and act upon the reports of town officers and committees as may be presented at this meeting. On the motion, is there any discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Sandorfi. Is that Mr.
This is
Sandorfi?
Mr. Romano, Marshall Street.
Oh,
Just
Mr.
a point
Romano.
of clarification, I heard a term, money being certified. Could we have a definition of what certified is, please?
Would you, Mr. Romano, hold your question until we're dealing with one of the articles that
Okay,
is going
well,
to
it's
be
already out
postponed,
there.
and the question will be quite germane at that time. Right now, we're just dealing with Article 1, and that has nothing to do with Article 1.
Well, I mean, there was a question that came up regarding that, and you answered it, but I am sure, like many others, don't know what you answered, so I'm just asking
I will
for
try to
simple
answer it
explanation.
for you when the first article comes up that we're going to postpone. Mr. Pasquale. Mr. Pasquale. Could you go to the lectern up front, please, Mr. Pasquale? The home audience won't be able to hear you, Mr. Pasquale. They're all your friends. Mr. Pasquale, you have the
Mr.
floor.
Moderator, as I understand committees appointed, there's a committee in the town that's appointed called the Elementary School Building Committee. Now, when I look at Articles 12, 13, and 14, in my mind, they're all lumped together. They have to do with the school. A survey was put out with taxpayers' money. You just can't get information back by reading the transcript in this town. So what I'm asking for is a little report where we are as of October 1st with this committee. I'm not looking what your final results are. I want to know where we are.
Article 1 is an article to hear, just a moment, is an article to hear and act upon the reports of town officers and committees. And there is a committee, as a matter of fact, there are several committees that are concerned with the construction of new school facilities for the town. And I think, if I understood Mr. Pasquale correctly, he was pleading with these committees to not be silent under this article, but to give the town a status report on where they're at. Do I read you correctly, Mr. Pasquale?
You heard me correctly. And
Okay.
I ask Jonathan's here to give the report.
Well, we can take them as they come. Yes.
The Elementary School Building Committee will be giving a report under Articles 12 and 13.
Okay. Thank you very much,
complete
Ms.
report.
Kalala. Mr. O'Leary?
In relation to Article 1, the Police Station Building Committee will be giving a report if it's acted favorably upon the motion before you.
Okay, so they will give it under Article 1 or under another
Under Article 1.
Under Article 1. Thank you very much, Mr. O'Leary. On the motion before us, all those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Mr. O'Leary, does the Police Station Building Committee want to speak to us?
Yes, Mr. Moderator, the Police Station Building Committee would like to address the meeting. Lieutenant Nolan.
Mr. Nolan.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As a representative of the Police Station Building Committee, we would like to report to